Start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2 No.1. Dear Mr. Randolph. Since my father's death, I have not had the chance to thank you for your kind words at his funeral. My father always thought highly of you as a tenant, and we were happy to have you living downstairs from him in case of an emergency. Now that we have started the process of dealing with my father's estate, I wanted to let you know the status of his house. We have decided to put the property on the market. All of us live a considerable distance away and do not want the responsibilities of being landlords. Before we list the house with a real estate agent, though, we wanted to find out if you had any interest in buying the property yourself. We would certainly be happy to consider an offer based on a reasonable discount from the market value because of the savings we would realize in real estate agency commissions and other costs. As you know, the house is a very desirable rental property, and mortgage costs would be largely offset by income from a tenant. If you have any interest, please contact me by October 31st. 1031. Sincerely, Jennifer Martin. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2 No.2. A man, perhaps in his 60s, appeared from somewhere in the back of the bus. 60. He sat next to me and placed his large shopping bag between us. I noticed the bus driver watching him in the mirror. Everything would be all right, I told myself. This man wouldn't get away with anything. He began to study my worn coat, my desperate hug of my corduroy pants. Bus heat rushed through the soles of my shoes, and I closed my eyes, allowing the warmth to help me forget him. Then he cleared his throat and touched my arm. "Excuse me," he said, "and pardon me for intruding. But I couldn't help but notice that you are shivering. Are you all right?" When his eyes met mine, I saw something I had never seen before. It was the face of a kind man. "You look tired," he said. "Have you had a tough day?" When he spoke, I realized that I was watching his concern for me take form. The sensation was new, foreign. The bus made a gassy sound as it stopped, and he rose to leave. "I get off here," he said. "I hope the rest of your Christmas is better than tonight." I looked into his eyes and felt my throat tighten. For a moment I wanted to take his hand, to hold fast to this rare concern for me. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2 No.3. There are risks to taking risks in your sport. Because you will struggle at first, your confidence may also suffer, and you may question whether risk-taking is the right path to be on. You might say to yourself, "Gosh, my past, safer approach worked pretty well, certainly much better than the way this is going now, so maybe I should just stick with what has worked." But what may have worked in the past and has gotten you to where you currently are won't work in the future or get you where you want to go. As an old Texas saying goes, if all you ever do is all you've ever done, then all you'll ever get is all you've ever got. Your efforts shouldn't be devoted to where you are now but where you want to be next month, next year, or in 5 years in your sport. 5. You need to prepare yourself for performing at the next level. And performing safe just won't cut it. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2 No.4. Think back to elementary school. Remember how your teacher would pose a question and then pause to observe which students would raise their hands to offer an answer? Typically, one assertive student would shout out, "Ooh! Ooh! I know the answer." And a few of the less aggressive ones in the back of the room might meekly raise their hands halfway up. The teacher had to decide whether to call on the lone show-off again or one of the shy students in the back. The key to this analogy is that teachers often make the decision to call on a shy student even before they pose a question to the class. And when the shy students realize the teacher is encouraging them to speak up, then more of them become willing to raise their hands. When you encounter a problem, it can evoke several potential solution ideas. Often, there are one or two strong, obvious possibilities, such as running away from the man gulch fire that confronted Wag Dodge. Wag Dodge man gulch. But other ideas, such as using fire as a tool for creating a protective buffer zone, aren't obvious because they are weakly associated with the elements of the problem. Fighting fire with fire isn't the first thing that jumps to mind in such situations. These ideas are the shy students, sitting at their temporal lobe desks. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.5. From a sociological perspective, it has been useful to view the construct of culture from a somewhat dichotomous perspective in which the notion of the cultural insider can be contrasted with that of the cultural outsider. Contemporary scholarship has drawn attention to the complexity of this comparison and the considerable subjectivity that lies at the heart of such an often oversimplified bifurcation. /with/categorization /given /susceptible /which /often /although /and /to /music /insider /outsider /associated /individual /nuanced /with /cultural /any /music /more /the /is /e /cultures /be /interacts /may /therefore. Culture-based differences in the way listeners and performers interact with and respond to music are often described by ethnic identity or geographical location, which are, in TUM, generally treated as categorical constructs. As such, they tend to oversimplify complex relationships, obscure considerable within-group variability, and, most critically, do not hold up well when considering a brain-based understanding of music processing. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.6. It is the mistake of much popular criticism to regard poetry, music, and painting, all the various products of art, as but translations into different languages of one and the same fixed quantity of imaginative thought, supplemented by certain technical qualities of color, in painting, of sound, in music, of rhythmical words, in poetry. In this way, the sensuous element in art, and with it almost everything in art that is essentially artistic, is made a matter of indifference. And a clear apprehension of the opposite principle, that the sensuous material of each art brings with it a special phase or quality of beauty, untranslatable into the forms of any other, an order of impressions distinct in kind, is the beginning of all true aesthetic criticism. For, as art addresses not pure sense, still less the pure intellect, but the imaginative reason through the senses, there are differences of kind in aesthetic beauty, corresponding to the differences in kind of the gifts of sense themselves. Each art, therefore, having its own peculiar and untranslatable sensuous charm, has its own special mode of reaching the imagination, its own special responsibilities to its material. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.7. Just as talking about an event is a form of rehearsal that may aid memory, talking or translating an experience into language can help to organize and assimilate the event in people's minds. An emotional experience, by definition, provokes talking because those who are affected by it are attempting to understand and learn more about it. Language, then, is the vehicle for important cognitive and learning processes following an emotional upheaval. Talking about an event may successfully organize and assimilate it, which will allow the person to move past the upheaval. Ironically, once an event is cognitively assimilated, individuals no longer need to ruminate about it, and, once it is out of their minds, they may actually forget about it. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.8. The graph above shows the average yearly spend on health and fitness categories in the UK by gender. The average yearly spend overall for women in the UK came in at £1,910, which was more than the average spend overall for men, which came in at £1,655. 1,910, 1,655. Women spent more on gym clothing, £405 yearly, and personal trainers, £263, than men did on each of the two categories. Men spent £324 and £172 on the two categories, respectively. 405, 263, 324172. Supplements and gym membership were the two biggest categories of expenses in health and fitness for men. Women dedicated the largest proportion of their budget towards supplements, followed by gym clothing. The amount of money spent on the former was less than twice the amount spent on the latter. Among the 5 categories surveyed, meal plans was the one that showed the lowest average spend for both men and women. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.9. Italian artist Marissa Mers was a sculptor and painter born in 1926 in Turin, Italy. Marissa Merz 1926 Turin. She was the sole female artist in the influential Arte Povera, poor art, movement, which was a movement that started in Turin in the late 1960s and lasted until the early 1970s. 1960 Turin 1970. She brought a uniquely female perspective to the movement, often using traditionally domestic crafts, such as knitting and braiding. Often overshadowed by her husband, the Arte Povera pioneer Mario Mers, 1925-2003, Marissa Mers had to wait until she was 90 to get the museum recognition she deserved. Marissa Merz Mario Mers, 1925-2003, 90. She did not start making art until she was in her 40s. 40. She began by creating aluminum living sculptures in her kitchen, and her work was first exhibited in Turin's Piper Club in 1967. Living Sculptures, 1967 Turin Piper Club. Little is known about Marissa Merz's early life, including her maiden name. Marissa Merz. While she was only belatedly recognized as a leading Arte Povera artist, Marissa Mers continued to work until late in life. Marissa Merz. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.10. 80. Electric Tea Kettle User Manual. 81. Before initial use. Max. 82. Fill kettle to the max line and bring to a boil. 23. 83. Discard the water. Repeat the process 2 or 3 times. 84. This will remove any dust or residue remaining from the manufacturing process. 85. Cleaning and maintenance. 86. To ensure optimum performance, the mesh filter should be cleaned periodically. 87. Rinse it under running water and brush with a soft brush, such as an old toothbrush. 88. Do not use cleaning powders to clean the exterior as they may scratch the surface. 89. Note. 15:20. 90. Please allow 15 to 20 seconds for kettle to cool down before switching on again. 91. This appliance is only suitable for heating water, do not use it for any other liquids. 92. Guarantee. If this product is found to be faulty as a result of faulty materials within 1 year from date of purchase, it will be repaired free of charge. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.11. 93. Blanket and Clothing Donation Drive. 94. Warm someone's heart this season. Harrison County. 95. This is the second annual event held by Harrison County. 10. 96. How you can help. Please collect gently used and clean blankets and clothes for men, women, teens, and children of all ages and sizes. Home Avenue 258 Harrison County. 97. Deliver. Please bring your blankets and clothes to Harrison County Community Center at 258 Home Avenue. 2022777330. 98. When, you can bring your donations every weekday from 7 a.m. till 3:30 p.m. until the end of July, 2022. 99. Thank you for helping the community. 1,000. 100. Our goal is to provide 1,000 warm blankets and clothes to the children and adults of our local communities who are in need of warmth. 101. Your donation is greatly appreciated by all. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.12. The shrinking of the human-animal divide in the late 20th century was accompanied by a growing concern for animals that rivaled, and then arguably surpassed, what had been seen in some European countries a century earlier, during the first great wave of animal protectionism. 20. Clearly, science was not the only factor that brought about the growing concern for animals. The change from horses to automobiles, and the demographic shift from rural to urban living, meant that most people experienced animals as companions and family members rather than in utilitarian roles as providers of transportation or food. The end of 2 world wars and the Great Depression freed people in the industrialized countries to be concerned about matters other than personal security and the necessities of life. And the media, from nature films to animated cartoons, depicted animals sometimes as fascinating natural beings and sometimes as sympathetic humanized ones. But whatever the role of these other factors, the altered scientific understanding of animals reinforced and gave weight to the altered popular understanding. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.13. There is much to be said for uniforms in the armed forces. Since they are closely identified with the state and symbolize its unity, their uniforms reinforce the consciousness of their national role. And it goes without saying that they should be suitable for combat. However, this has to be balanced against other equally important considerations. If the yarmulke, turban, and other religious apparels were to be disallowed, Jews, SI1s and others would be denied both an avenue of employment and an opportunity to serve their country. Furthermore, the United States is a culturally diverse society made up of people of different religious faiths. There is no obvious reason why its national symbols including military uniforms should not reflect that fact. Besides, if differences of mere headdress are likely to detract from collective solidarity, the differences of color, accent, and facial features are likely to do so even more, and we would have to exclude blacks, Asians, and others from joining the armed forces. In short, while the uniform should not be discarded, it should be open to appropriate modification to accommodate genuine religious, cultural and other requirements, provided of course that they do not compromise military effectiveness. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.14. The key factor making it possible to run an industry with a workforce dominated by young, inexperienced part-time employees who do not stay on the job for long is the extreme routinization of the work. When work is routinized, each worker repeatedly performs a limited number of tasks according to instructions provided by management, which minimizes in fast food, virtually eliminates the need or opportunity for workers to exercise discretion. This sort of standardization has a variety of benefits for employers. It increases managerial control over the operation and cuts wage costs by eliminating the need to hire skilled workers. The simplified jobs can be learned quickly, making employers less dependent on experienced workers. Routinization is especially advantageous to fast food companies because of its capacity to promote uniformity of outcomes. Massive advertising campaigns promise fast food customers a particular standard of food and service and a predictable kind of experience. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.15. An individual is defenseless and unprotected if the community with whom he or she is identified is subjected to assimilation by another, vilification or perverse stereotyping. Just as under colonial conditions, the discourse of individual rights is meaningless without the prior right of the political community to self-government, so individual rights in many situations simply require as a precondition the rights of a community to maintain and reproduce itself. Thus, if human rights charters are not to be perceived as instruments of subjugation on the part of the powerful but rather as, what they are intended to be, instruments to empower the weak and vulnerable members of the human species, then we must recognize that rights attach to groups as well as to individuals. Indeed, Article 16 of the Union Declaration of Human Rights clearly states that the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state, while Article 29 states that everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. 1629. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.16. We have observed individuals who know themselves well but fail to communicate this to others. Since their colleagues are not mind readers, these individuals often remain frustratingly enigmatic unless, through choice and skill, they can overcome their predilection to non-disclosure. Some introverted executives fall into this trap. The problem is made worse by the speed with which leaders are required to make an impact. Organizational time moves faster and faster. We observed a highly talented Silicon Valley executive who spoke to us of her compelling vision for the capacity of technology to transform human lives for the better. She seemed to burn with passion at the prospect. But when we asked her followers what they thought she stood for, they just didn't know. She had not found an appropriate vehicle for self-disclosure. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.17. The audience members know that they cannot have a taste of on-screen food, and they must suspend disbelief in order to convince themselves that the film sustenance is actually substantive for anyone, even the actors. Herein lies the social dimension of cinematic cuisine. The facial expressions of actors as they consume stage food evaluate the quality of the culinary experience, coding the food as delicious, unfamiliar, or disgusting. /the/binary /reaction /in /sensation /1 /cinematic /also /in /is /that /to /end /diner /theater /taste /the /of /have /acting /the /quality /in /dining /who /only /experience /the /of /dialectical /gustatory /taste /in /another /no /not /seats /to /opposition /imaginary /imaginative /access the /diners /reveals the /but or the /evaluated /further /impacts. The on-screen eaters teach their viewers to enjoy, ignore, or criticize their food. There is little chance that the audience would imagine an appealing gustatory experience if the images of consumption were coded as unpleasant. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.18. AI and digital technologies are already disrupting the traditional view of democracy, and not always for the better, ensuring that processes are more inclusive. In fact, if anything, AI is strengthening the link between democracy and economics, supporting the manipulation of information to meet the needs of a few, and enabling the emergence of super-economic powers that are outside democratic scrutiny and control. When algorithms are used to decide our access to information about a news item, a political candidate or a business, opinions and votes can shift, and potential governments be made or broken. Because algorithmic censorship is mostly unregulated, large corporations can in principle decide what information we have, outside the traditional democratic processes of governance and accountability. Moreover, these same corporations also own most of our, and our governments, data by the conditions under which we use their products to share, store and manage information. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.19. Archaeologists should define what an artifact is and isn't. Quite simply, artifacts make up most of the good stuff, the stuff that's worth writing home about from an excavation or a survey. They are things made or altered by human beings. Within this category, we include everything from the earliest stone tools to pottery, weapons, jewelry, clothes, and pretty much everything else portable that humans can make. Some artifacts, however, and things associated with them, can't be moved. We call these features. Something like a ditch is a feature. It's obviously made by a human, but you can't move it without losing it. The same goes for doorways, fire pits, stone altars, and the like. Sometimes, though, we also call something a feature when we're just not quite sure yet what it is, but we know it's a something. Hence the archaeological axiom: 1 stone is a stone, 2 stones is a feature, 3 stones is a wall. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.20. Marketing aims to provide the consumer experience of flow, a deep level of involvement and control that extends to total immersion in activities involving prosthetic objects, such that the experience of time slows. When driving a car, flow is the feeling of oneness with the machine, which performs as if it were an extension of the body. When surfing on the internet, it is the seamless sequence of responses facilitated by machine interactivity, being intrinsically enjoyable and accompanied by loss of self-consciousness. Whilst marketers seek to link the consumer experience to feelings of empowerment and control, the realities of driving are traffic jams, road rage, and the rising costs of motoring, not to mention the occasional accident. Surfers, too, can be overwhelmed, annoyed for passwords they cannot remember, irritated by the daily chore of removing spam from email, or coping with the consequences of spyware, cookies, and viruses. The fruits gained by maintaining the hit of flow provided by experiential consumption come at the price of the additional labor required to pay for it, by working at home without cutting back on work in the office. More seriously, those who bought into the consumer dream to sustain their hit of flow in the good times now find themselves placed on a shifting cliff of debt. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.21. The growth of air travel was one of the major global developments of the 20th century. 2.0. This trend has continued into the 21st century and will continue into the foreseeable future. 2.1. Major international airports, such as London's Heathrow Airport, now handle tens of millions of passengers annually. Heathrow. This has had enormous impact on airport infrastructure and border security checks, and creates a constant pressure between commercial entities and control authorities. Airlines and airport operators seek rapid movement of passengers through arrival and departure to meet consumer demand, and to increase passenger satisfaction and profitability. As a result, government authorities are under political and financial pressure to facilitate the movement of passengers through passport control, but must also meet the requirements of immigration law and maintain border and national security. In this context, passport control is a frontline security task of fundamental importance, because it provides the primary means to quickly determine the nationality and identity of passengers seeking to enter a state. Once this information has been established, the control authorities can proceed to determine eligibility of the passengers to enter under the immigration laws of the state. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.0.22. Some scholars have argued that the power and value of the human-animal relationship is based on a perceived non-judgmental emotional support. Both Sigmund Freud and his daughter Anna wrote of their personal experiences with dogs and how this bonding taught them about pure love relationships. Sigmund Freud. Anna. Although most people may benefit from a pure love relationship, based on their unique life contexts, some individuals may experience such relationships as particularly meaningful. For example, individuals with a personal history of emotional deprivation and abuse in their formative years may find that pets become more consistent and reliable others to which they can turn. The relatedness encompassed within human-animal companionship may in turn foster an individual's ability to connect with others in more appropriate ways. Pet companionship may also serve as a source of emotional sustenance for those who have no or limited connection with other people. But even when the world does not seem like a terrible place, we are all still in need of reliable ties that can be counted upon, ones that shape the very essence of who we are. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.23. On a personal level, we have always been aware of the elasticity of time. Good times seem short and bad times seem to last forever. Neuroscientists have shown that in some respects this is not fiction. The length of our memories is linked to how good or bad the occasions are. What neuroscientists have found is that we don't perceive time slowing down in the moment, but our recall of the event makes us believe that time has slowed down. To understand what is going on in the brain, imagine that the brain acts like a computer that stores information on a hard drive. When life is boring, the hard drive stores a regular amount of information. When we are scared, however, as during a car accident, the brain's amygdala, our internal emergency operator, kicks in. Our brains collect finer details like the crumpling of the hood, the breaking off of side view mirrors, and the changing of the expression on the other driver's face. The amount of detail gathered is increased, as if two hard drives are storing the data. More data gets stored. When the brain recalls the event, it interprets the large amount of information as a longer incident. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.24-25. There is a particular problem in not having an adequate statistical framework for measuring intangible value, which is that much of it consequently gets undervalued. There are large and growing swaths of the economy where productivity as it is conventionally measured simply cannot grow. In fact, it's not clear what productivity means when there is no tangible product. In an intangible service-based economy, we need to be measuring something else entirely. But because an inappropriate definition of productivity is what gets measured, and doesn't in fact increase, large and increasing parts of the economy are systematically undervalued, as are the people who work in those jobs. For example, performing artists only have a maximum of 365 nights a year on which they can do a show, and can't become more productive. 365. Nurses become arguably less, not more, productive in a meaningful sense if they treat more patients, but the statistics work the opposite way. In the online economy, digital products can show infinite productivity. They can be duplicated essentially for free, but if they're priced for free, they will perhaps not be produced in the desirable quantities. In these varied examples, the conceptual framework of measurement isn't up to assessing the things we value, in a non-economic sense, which in turn actually makes it hard to value them in the monetary sense. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. EBS Mini Test 2.26-28. Wally Kurlig was a lonely child. Wally Kurlig. Wally happened to be retarded. Wally. Already 11 years old and just starting the 3rd grade, he was physically awkward and much larger than his classmates, so was seldom invited to play in any ball games. 113. The poor kid would stand by himself on the sidelines and watch. He was gentle and kind and, by virtue of his size, a natural protector of the little kids who had problems. No one would dare cause trouble for the younger children when burly Wally was near. Wally. In the children's Christmas play that year, the director chose Wally to play the role of the innkeeper. Wally. He figured that because of Wally's size, his refusal would be more dramatic. Wally. Everyone was confident that he would act out his part well because when he put his heart into something, he gave it his all. The annual Christmas program started in the usual fashion, and before long, Mary and Joseph, the expectant mother and her betrothed, had made their way to the inn. Joseph knocked on the door and a cold voice demanded, "What do you want?" They looked at him with pleading eyes as Joseph begged, Please, sir, we are in urgent need of lodging. But Wally yelled as he had been told, there is no vacancy. Go away. Wally. At this point, the irritated innkeeper was supposed to say unfriendly, I said there is no room in here. Go around back and sleep in the barn if you want. However, Wally got caught up with his feelings and forgot that this was only acting. Wally. He stood there in genuine sorrow, pondering the situation. For him this was no longer a pretend production, it was really happening. His Sunday school teacher, assuming he had forgotten his lines, whispered, send them on their way. As Mary and Joseph turned to go, the audience saw Wally's face. Wally. It was filled with sadness as tears started to flow. All of a sudden he shouted, please come back. I'll sleep in the barn and you stay in my room. No one who was present that night will be able to forget how deeply they were touched by that scene. MTC. Good job.